Abigail Disney, Roy O. Disney's granddaughter and Walt Disney's great niece, recently expressed her anger with working conditions for Disneyland cast members following an undercover visit in an interview with Yahoo News. Yahoo's still a thing. That's news to me. Anyway, Abigail said she made the visit after she received a Facebook message from a cast member at the park. After speaking with cast members, she said she was so livid with what she heard. Quote, every single one of these people I talked to were saying, I don't know how I can maintain this face of joy and warmth when I have to go home and forage for food in other people's garbage. Meanwhile, my employees are complaining about how many cupcakes they have to eat. Yeah, I want you guys to think about that next time.
You should share with the cast members.
I would buy them cupcakes. They want to review cupcakes? I'll buy cast
there
members
you go.
cupcakes.
Look
sure.
at that.
Quote, I was so livid when I came out of there because, you know, my grandfather, Roy O. Disney, taught me to revere these people that take your tickets, that pour your soda, that scrape the bubble gum off the sidewalks every night. So you walk into that immaculate place. I don't know when the last time she went was. Those people are much of the recipe for success, and in a company that's never been more profitable, there is no excuse for an employee to be using food stamps, to be doubling up on housing, to be rationing their insulin. Abigail said she tried to contact the Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger in an attempt to start a dialogue on the matter to no avail. Maybe she should get Twitter. She's expressed disappointment with Iger's lack of action. Quote, Bob needs to understand he's an employee just the same as the people scrubbing the gum off the sidewalk are employees. And they're entitled to all the same dignity and human rights that he is. Yeah. When Yahoo News reached out for comment from the Walt Disney Company, a spokesperson changed the subject and discussed their education initiative, Disney Aspire. Yeah, that's great.
Wow.
But how did Disney eventually completely respond to this? By forcing one of their Media List approved fan sites to post a rebuttal from one of their spokespeople.
Wow.
This is a real thing. Mice Chat posted this. And how do we know this is like a thing they do? Because they tried to do it with us once. Yeah. Fun fact. Quote, we generally avoid commenting on such baseless reports like this, but this one is particularly egregious, and we won't let this stand. This is an official statement from the Walt Disney Company, but after the whole unscrupulous thing, I don't think anyone cares anymore. Obviously, it's just post whatever you want. You can be as mean as you want to whoever. I don't care if their last name's Disney. It doesn't matter. We strongly disagree with this characterization of our employees and their experience at Disney. This widely reported stunt is a gross and unfair exaggeration of the facts that is not only a misinterpretation, but also an insult to the thousands of employees who are part of the Disney community. We continually strive to enhance the employment experience of our more than 200,000 employees through a variety of benefits and programs. Notice we're not talking about salary here, that provide them the opportunity, mobility, and well-being. At our parks in Orlando and Anaheim, the Walt Disney Company currently pays its hourly workers an average of $19.50 an hour. Can we think about this for a second? An average of $19.50 an hour. If you're going to fudge numbers, usually you can get to the point where you can break that 20. Like, the numbers were so bad that Disney couldn't even push it that 50 cents into the 20s. Mind you, yeah. The best they could do was $19.50. That's what they could get away with. Quote, significantly above the federal minimum wage. Yeah, your average is. But, yeah, anyway. But we understand the challenges workers and families face in 2019 are complex and go beyond the paycheck. That's why we provide a wide range of benefits and initiatives to improve our employees' lives at and outside of work, from subsidized childcare to generous leave policies, from convenient access to pharmacies and clinics to free college degrees and vocational training programs for hourly employees. We recognize the economic challenges facing all... Yeah, here are the smiling cast member pictures that Mice Chat forced in, that I'm sure Disney provided. We recognize the economic challenges facing all working families, and we continually meet with our employees in the process of developing even stronger programs. Still, we're proud of the work we've done to improve. Look at this again, patting ourselves on the back, just like Disney did in their little announcement after Star Wars Land opened without lines. And of more than 45,000 jobs we've added in the United States since 2005. The men and women who make the Disney parks such a special experience for millions of people are dedicated, hardworking, and proud. We agree with that, for sure. And we'll continue to listen to, empower, and reward them. Now, let's be honest for a minute here. We live in Orlando. And in Orlando, there's a couple of things that happen. Number one in Orlando is, and I live in an apartment complex fairly close to Walt Disney World. I will tell you, I know in apartments across the hall from me, there are 4 or more cast members in each of those apartments living in 2 bedrooms together. And I'm not saying they're couples. There's 4 to 6 cast members who aren't together in relationships living together in apartments all around me right now. I know for a fact those college program kids, there's a whole bunch of them in each of those apartments. We won't even talk about how the college program is sort of free slave labor for the Walt Disney Company. Won't get into that. But if you for a second believe that everybody working for the Walt Disney Company is living comfortably, that couldn't be further from the truth. So I don't know what Disney's saying, especially in Anaheim, where the cost of living is ridiculous. I've seen studio apartments that are 1 room in Anaheim where cast members are living that was like $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
That's a studio apartment. It's 1 singular room, $1,200, and people are scrounging to make that happen. So, yeah. Maybe the Walt Disney Company should worry more about fixing these problems than responding to people they should just leave alone, like Abigail Disney.
So, why did they reach out directly through a fan-owned site instead of the blog, the Parks blog?
Why did the Disney Parks blog feel the need to make 2 posts directly pointed at us?
Right.
There clearly is like a new direction.
Okay.
Clearly, like they had a little meeting and they were like, "All right, well, we're tired of getting pushed around and everyone's pushing." Instead of understanding that as a Walt Disney Company, there's a tone they have to take. There's an acceptable tone. You're a family-friendly organization.
Right.
There's a professionalism there. And instead now, because they're angry that they've sort of been pushed around by people, they're like lashing out at everybody. And that's what the PR department has decided they're going to do now.
Do you think they see this approach as less harsh than putting it out through a Disney-owned medium? Or
I don't know why they chose to do it that way. Maybe because they thought it was too harsh for their channel.
Yeah.
But they certainly didn't think the Tiki Room and Bears things were too ridiculous for their channel. So I couldn't tell you what goes on in their mind.
I wonder how many sites they reached out to ask if they could print.
Well, I will tell you, our personal experience was I think it's been well documented what happened when we went back on the media list, that we were told we would have access to certain events.
Right.
And we, ran stuff through them as they asked. I told them when we were going to run rumor stories and things like that. And then they decided just not to invite us to events they promised we would go to, which was their end of sort of the deal of us like warning them like, hey, we've got this information, we're going to run it, and so in the end they didn't let us into those events, so I ran all those stories that they kind of wanted me to hold. And in the process after that, the Disneyland team did not have the problem with us that the Florida team had. The Florida team had decided they were no longer going to work with us. But the California, the people in the PR department based in California, the Disneyland Resort team, decided that we were a valuable asset and that they should work with us. And we were working together on some things. And there was obviously, I forget the story that sparked it, but there was a story about wages in Anaheim. And in response, they asked us to interview a cast member. They asked us to interview a cast member.
Okay.
And there was a lot of deliberation here. It's like, well,
a specific cast member?
It was not a
your
spokesperson.
Choice?
No, they handed us.
They handed you a cast member. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, because I would have went and asked for, I would have went in the park and just like picked somebody out.
Just
I would have picked out the person that looked the most sad and been like, I want to talk to that guy. Let's find out what that guy thinks of his job here.
Yeah.
But no, they gave us a person who I think was not a front of the line, not a frontline cast member from what I remember. I'd have to reread the article. But there was a lot of deliberation here. Should we do it? And I think what we landed on at the time was it was fair, because I think all of the media was blah, 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 this, and this. And we kind of just wanted people to make up minds for themselves. And that's the way we worded the article. And certainly none of the wording in that was like, this claim is egregious. And it didn't even really, our little blurb at the top mentioned the story that was going around. The interview with the cast member, at no point does the cast member even talk about the story. There's no recognition from the company of that story. The company just wanted to put out an example of a cast member who had opportunities to move up and make money.
Right.
And And so we ran that in an act of good faith in a lot of ways. And I didn't think it was anything particularly, like it wasn't slanted or anything. I thought it was pretty fair. And then, needless to say, Florida got mad that California was giving us access and said, no, you have to do the same thing we're doing. And basically, the California representative was just like, we want to work with you guys, but Florida's really just not letting us. Wow. And they were like, all right, fine. Yeah, and this is another one of those cases where how can we get reach? How can we get this story out there? And they decided to put it through Mice Chat, which hasn't been relevant in I don't know how long, but we won't get into that now. It's also the site that said It's a Small World was closing recently, I think. But yeah, I make up stuff.
All right. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's gross. I think as a Disney company, you turn the other cheek. I think that's your job. I think they should have just not even said anything about it. They should just let it go away.
It's obvious lashing out. I just find it fascinating to, the difference between the unscrupulous stuff, which was published through their own medium, which I guess makes sense because you wouldn't want necessarily to reach out to another fan-owned website.
And they certainly could have done it in a more respectful way, though. I think it was written in a very we don't like you.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, as opposed to I think in the past I remember every Tom, Dick, and Harry was posting that the name of Hollywood Studios was changing. And Disney, to their credit, I think, handled it in a very good way. They put out a post, which I think, for the most part, just talked about Toy Story Land opening soon.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, it said, oh, and by the way, despite rumors, we are going to keep the name of the park as it is, Disney's Hollywood Studios, as we feel like that encapsulates what this park is.
And that's fine.
And and I thought, okay, so you told everybody the rumors are false. All right.
Yeah.
You didn't write well, according to these idiots, unscrupulous sources said it's going to be Disney's Hyperia XL theme park. They've clearly taken a new direction. I'm sure there's some sort of new management in the PR department. I'm sure they all got yelled at, and now they were told, we're going to go a new direction, and things are going to be different now. We're going to take control of all this, and blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's any secret that right now Disney there are a couple of sites, ourselves included, that operate outside of their control. There are a couple of sites that are able to post honest reviews and say what we think, and we don't worry about it. We don't need a media credential to do what we do here. And our page views and success show that we don't. And I think they would like to get rid of the 3 or 4 of us that remain. And I think that's the current goal.
Yeah.
The current goal is to weed us out. Yeah. And they would like to control the media. I understand that. I think it's unfair. I think maybe they should just worry about doing a good job and spending money and doing the right things that they should do, like maintaining attractions and things like that. And then you wouldn't have to worry about me, because let's look at it this way. For many years, I don't think we were particularly negative. I think we were really positive. I think they were doing good stuff. And I think we wrote them glowing reviews. Cars Land and Pandora, and there were a lot of good restaurants that opened in that time. You're talking about Tiffin's and a bunch of good resort restaurants I can't even think of right now. Sanaa and all those. So we're talking about most of WDWNT's lifetime. There's a lot of very positive things that happened, and so we wrote them very positive reviews. And every once in a while there was a restaurant or something we didn't like, we're honest, but it was 9 out of 10 things where this was done well, and we liked this. And so it wasn't like some conscious change here. Clearly things have gone awry in the company, and we've seen quality slip, and things are not good right now. And that's why we are where we are. And so despite what the Walt Disney Company wants to think, and that people are trying to drum up narratives that things are bad and blah, 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 there's no narrative. So anyway, that's where things are. Just wanted to rant as usual. Should we move on? We should move on to more positive.
Nothing gets my blood boiling like a Disney PR statement.
Yeah. It's just gross. She's a Disney family member. You quote Walt Disney every day on that goddamn blog. And Bob Chapek just went in Forbes and evoked the name of Walt Disney to make his point. And yet the minute someone with the last name Disney speaks out and says you're not living up to our family, what our family wanted, you say that they're making an egregious misstatement. That goes against what you're saying. You can't evoke the name when you want it and then shun the Disney name when you don't. That's not how this works.